Yeah. So
Okay,
please,
Bismillah.
Rian, Iza, Ingracia. Where is Iza, Barek, Lutfia? I try to call you with us.
MashaAllah. Welcome all.
Okay. Where is Barek, Rafif? I think they still prepare themselves to join with us.
Okay, they may join meanwhile. No problem. Let them come. Should we start?
Oke, supaya enak biar bisa on kamera gitu ya, teman-teman ya. Sorry by Indonesia, Prof. You
Yeah,
did
yeah, yeah.
understand well. Ya,
Terima kasih, terima kasih.
supaya kita bisa saling menghormati kepada Profesor Hamidullah dalam perkuliahan ini ya. Tolong hidupkan kamera teman-teman semua ya. Oke, Prof, we can start
Okay,
our class
Bismillah.
today.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Auz billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students and my dear friend Park Zani,
Yes.
mashallah, we are just meeting again. I feel so happy that the international students from the Muhammadiyah University, Yogyakarta, I am talking to them, though virtually this time, and last time I was there physically. And inshallah, in future, we'll be able to be together and be physically also in Jogja, inshallah. But whatever the problems you may have about the subject which I teach you, you need material, you need some guidance. I am always ready. Don't feel shy. You can ask me, and I can give you my email and WhatsApp, so you can just have contact with me for any material kind of material you need on the subject I teach. So inshallah, I'll be available. Now
Okay.
today we have a
So sorry,
now
Prof.
yeah.
Maybe for the material you can send it to me. Then
I
I
will
will
send you.
share
Yeah,
it to the
I can send you.
students.
Then you can hand over. Okay, as you
Thank
like.
you very much.
Yeah, you are the mediator. Through
Yeah,
you, we have to do all things.
it's
Mashallah.
okay, bro.
So yeah, Alhamdulillah. Thank you. So inshallah, today we are discussing about riba. Very interesting subject in the sense that without riba we can't think. So there are some such teachings of Quran and Hadith and Sunnah where we have been not allowed to take riba. But if you see the conventional economics in modern times, you can't think without riba. Everyone in one way or the other way is getting involved in riba. Or if nothing happens, at least there is some dust coming to us, vapors coming to us from the riba. So this is a very interesting subject in that sense, and much work has been done on the subject. But we need to study it from the academic point of view, academic and intellectual point of view, and from the point of view of the economical, discussions on the subject about riba in the Islamic circles. So riba is basically from Arabic word rabwah or raba. So that is the meaning of that can be usury, or we can call it even interest in many ways, interest or usury, we may call it. And it is basically in Islam that business is allowed. Business is allowed, but riba has been not allowed, made allowed by Quran. Ahalallahu al-bayya wa haram riba. Allah has made bayya halal and riba has been made unlawful. So this is Quranic verse. I will be discussing all these matters, and I will be talking about the traditional classical interpretation of riba, and then Rabbi Nasaiya, and also Rabbi Fazl or Rabbi Jahiliya. All these matters I will be discussing, inshallah. And what is the opinion of old and new, scholars about riba? I will be discussing that, so that we may have a comprehensive and all-round viewpoint about riba in all its shades and spheres. So Islam has also talked about this, as I mentioned, and riba has been mentioned, and it has 12 verses of the Quran. Some people say there are 18 verses of the Quran where the mention of riba has been made. For example, one of the Quranic verse chapter 3, verse 130, chapter 4, verse 161, chapter 30, verse 39. And there are other verses also you may mention. So I have mentioned a verse, chapter 3, verse 130. You can note even. And then chapter 4, verse 161. Then chapter 30, verse 39. And there are other verses also. For example, chapter 2nd, verse 275, chapter 2nd, verse 280. So these are some of the verses of the Quran where the mention of riba has been made clearly. It is also mentioned in many ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet ﷺ has mentioned riba in several of his sayings, and there is a good number of ahadith where riba has been mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ. It is often used as an Islamic term for interest. We may call it riba or we may call it interest. In Arabic, we call it riba. In English, we call it Arabic riba, and in English, usury or interest. Interest is which is given by the banks on the amount, we know that. So that's all. There is a consensus among all the Muslims that all loan or the bank interest is riba. Loans which we take from banks, and then we also have the interest from the banks, that is also considered to be riba. You understand? In a what bank gives in a form of interest, that has been also called as riba, and this is consensus on that. There have been several council, and you are taking loan. So some translation of verses of the Quran substitute the word interest for riba usually. The orthodox or conservative view, now there are two views. One is modern view about riba, second is classical view. There were people who have talked about riba earlier. But there are people in modern times, they talk also about riba or interest or usury. So we'll talk about that. As well as there are some revivalists. Revivalist means a person who wants to revive Islam again in modern times, bring some reformation, bring some new system to fore. For example, we have Muhammad Abdahu, Rashid Raza. In India, we have people like Sir Said Ahmad Khan, and then we have other scholars. We have Muhammad Nasir from Indonesia. Muhammad Nasir. We had a very good seminar on him few months back. So I had read a paper on him also. So they were also trying to revive Islam in modern times, and they have their own views about economics amount on the over the principal amount, that is riba. Second, he says there is riba sunnah, the riba, the interest, the usury mentioned in hadith or sunnah. What is that? An exchange of money of the same denomination where the quantity exchanged is not equal, whether it is in a support transaction or with different payment. So he gives what is riba or sunnah. He says that we are exchanging money of the same denomination, and where the quantity exchange quantity is equal, which we exchange, or it may be not equal. It may be unequal in some cases. Whether it is in a support transaction or at once, or you are giving it later on. And then he says a barter exchange between two weightable or measurable commodities of the same kind, where either the quantity exchanged is not equal or delivery of one side is deferred. So that is known as riba al-fazl. I will explain that again. A barter exchange between two different weightable or measurable commodities where the delivery of one side is deferred. So this will also be considered as riba as-sunnah. So there are other scholars like Raqib al-Zaman and Muhammad Umar Farooq. They have talked also about riba. I am just giving you what people have said about riba, and then we will discuss it in detail, just how they define it. Because we need first to define. As has been said, if you want to discuss, let us define the terms. What do we mean by the term riba and riba al-fazl, riba al-nasi, and the riba al-Quran, riba al-jahiliyyah, riba al-sunnah? I am explaining those. I will send you also material, but let us understand what people have said, what scholars have said about riba and its various kinds. What is meant from riba in Quran? What is meant about riba in Sunnah, in Hadith? And people have talked about that. So now, for example, Raqib Zama and Muhammad Umar Farooq, what they say about riba? They say about riba al jahiliyyah, that is a debt which was doubled and redoubled each year. They, such type of amount, you have given some money, you have been given some money by someone, and you had discussed or you had agreed that you will give more additional money on that amount, which was the principal amount. But you could not return that money next year. So now the interest which you had given, that has been doubled, or that has been redoubled. It has become double. It has become redoubled. So that was the riba al jahiliyyah, which was prevalent in the times of pre-Islamic Arabia, Arab world before Islam. What type of riba they had? If a person has given loan to someone and he had to return that next year with some additional amount, but he or she could not return that, then that interest was doubled or redoubled. It was made 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and that is known as riba al jahiliyyah. So that has been mentioned by scholars like Raqib Zaman and Umar Farooq, that when each hour this year it is being doubled, if the borrower could not pay what was given to him. You understand? If the borrower is not able to pay back the loan next year with the amount of interest, that interest is doubled or that is redoubled. So that was known as riba jahiliyyah. And another similar definition which has been described by Taqi Usmani, I was telling you, that the riba al jahiliyyah was a kind of loan where the borrower was not charged any additional amount above the principal unless they could not repay when the loan was due. So this was also one of the way, in which case they were charged an additional amount, but not necessarily double. Not double, charged amount. That was also considered to be riba jahiliyyah. It could be double, it could be not double. It could be not more than that, what was already accepted. That was also prevalent among the Arabs before Islam. In which case they were charged an additional amount, and that in readily a number of transactions where an increased amount was charged on the principal amount. So this was known as riba al jahiliyyah. Now we have another kind of riba, riba al nasiya. Riba. Now we have riba al jahiliyyah, riba al Quran, riba al sunnah, and riba al jahiliyyah. Now we are going to another kind of riba, that is riba al nasiya, the excess occurring from a loan transaction. Riba nasiya is a riba on a credit transaction when two quantities of items are exchanged, but one or both parties delays delivery or payment and pays interest. Because of the delay, he could not pay the money at the proper time when he had to pay. Now it is delayed, he has to pay interest because he could not deliver the things at its proper time. That is known as riba nasiya. But one or both parties delays delivery or payment and pays interest, that is excess amount on the principal amount, and that was considered to be riba nasiya. And now we have Fakhruddin Razi. You know Fakhruddin Razi, one of the great scholars. I'll be talking about Fakhruddin Razi. I'll be talking about Qurtubi, what they have said about that. They have also talked about these all type of riba. Riba al-fazl, also riba al-sunnah. We may call it riba al-fazl, or we may call it riba al-sunnah. So these are two type of definitions. Excess, it is occurring in a sale of bartered transaction. Bartered means that you are just giving one thing for another thing. For example, you are exchanging, you are exchanging, for example, some vegetable with vegetable. You are exchanging house for house. So that is bartered. You are just providing something, in exchange of something else. Maybe not in form of the money, not in coins, but in in kind, in kind. For example, wheat for wheat, but the kind of wheat may be different in that way. So this is also known as riba al fazl. That is riba involving the simultaneous exchange. Simultaneous exchange. Same thing is being exchanged for the same thing. You are exchanging wheat for wheat, rice for rice. The exchange in the same kind. You are doing that, not involving a deferred, delayed payment of unequal quantity or qualities. So here Muhammad Taqi, he has talked about, and so was not part of the pre-Islamic Jahiliyyah. It was not during the time of the Jahiliyyah before Islam. Now there are some scholars in the Islamic world who have been talking about these all kinds of riba, and some of them have allowed even interest. Let me talk about Muhammad Abduh. You know Muhammad Abduh? Muhammad Abduh, he is one of the very important scholars of Islam, and he was an Egyptian, and he was teaching in Azhar University. His impact is there on Malaysia, on Indonesia, on India. So he has talked about also. He was the grand mufti of Egypt. So what he has said, he declared collecting interest on bank deposits and loans permissible. He says that if we are collecting, interest on bank deposits and loans, that is permissible. He said that in 1900. I am talking about Muhammad Abdul. I was telling you that there is anonymity, that all the interest and usury is prohibited. But there are some scholars who have said that it is permissible. For example, I am talking about Muhammad Abduhu. So we have to understand what are the different definitions of riba. Then we have to understand what are the different interpretations which have been given to this concept by our scholars, old and new, so that we may comprehensively understand the concept of riba in economics, from Islamic point of view, from modern point of view, from conventional point of view, from classical point of view, and from modern point of view. And this will give you a complete picture of the topic. So Muhammad Abduhu said that collecting interest on bank deposits and loans is permissible. And he gave this fatwa in 1900, 1900. From then what he said, from then up to the year 202, there have been many muftis of the world who have declared riba prohibited. Although Muhammad Abduh said that riba is allowed, permissible in bank loans, but there have been so many scholars from 1900 to 200, 2002. They have said that all the usury, all the interest is prohibited, you know, and permissible and prohibited and then permissible again. But some people say it is permissible, but then others say it is not permissible at all. So it means that there is not agreement on the lawfulness or unlawfulness of riba. There is not consensus on the opinion. Although there have been many efforts, many scholars, many professors, many muftis, many jurists, and many organizations have talked about this. Some people said that we can take the loan and then the interest which is received on account of that amount, that is permissible. For example, as I was talking about Muhammad Abdu. But there have been generations of the scholars, muftis and jurists who have sometimes said it is permissible, sometimes they said it is prohibited, and sometimes they said it is again permissible or prohibited. So there is no consensus on this subject in this way. In 1976, this is very important. In 1976, King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah organized the first international conference on Islamic economics in Mecca. So the first conference was conducted by King Abdulaziz University on this subject, economics, and that was held at Jeddah. And what was the, what was the program? At the conference, several hundred Muslim intellectuals, Sharia scholars, and economists, they said all forms of interest were riba. So this is very interesting. This is a milestone in the history of declaring riba. What is riba? How to define riba? Although I have defined what is riba from the Quranic point of view and from the Sunnah point of view, then I have told you about some riba al Sunnah, riba al Jahiliyyah, riba al Nasiya, riba al Fazl. I will talk about that more, but just I am telling you what has been the viewpoint of scholars, organizations about prohibition or allowing of the riba. So I was talking about a conference held by Abdul Aziz University, King Abdul Aziz University from Jeddah in Mecca, 1976. And there it was said the scholars were there, hundreds of the scholars. There were hundreds of the muftis, hundreds of the jurists, hundreds of the intellectuals. And what they decided? That all forms of interest were riba. So it means that they are usury. And then what they said? And then 2009, you understand, 2009. Now these are two milestones. One is 900 banks and 250 mutual funds around the world compiled with this definition of riba. And the impact of this fatwa was, the degree was that throughout the Islamic world, hundreds of the Islamic banks, they have accepted this definition. And then they accepted that 250 mutual funds and 300 banks, they said that we are accepting this. And then they disallowed the interest on the loans. Injections about so there are many Quranic verses. It has been said in Quran, verse chapter 2, verse 275, and once each in verse 275, and also chapter 2, verse 278, and chapter 3, verse 130, and chapter 4, verse 161, and chapter 30, verse 39. The mention of the interest has been made in these verses of the Quran. The Meccan verses in Surah Rum, not only in the verses which were revealed in Mecca, but the verses which were revealed also in Medina. There are two types of verses. Some of the verses of the Quran were revealed, most of the verses of the Quran were revealed in Mecca. But even in the verses which were revealed in Mecca, there is mention of riba. Although it was prohibited in Medina, when Prophet reached to Medina. But even the mention of the riba is in the verses which were revealed in Makkah. So in this way, this is a very important subject for so far as Islamic studies is concerned or Islamic economics is concerned. And the Meccan verse in Surah Rum was the first to be revealed on the topic about riba. And what you give, the Quran says, and what you give in usury riba, that it may increase upon the people's wealth, increase not with God. So you may just try to get some more, additional amount for the money which you give to the people as loan, that you will get. But for God, there will be no increase in that. For men, there will be increase, but for God, there will be no increase in that. And in the same way, there are some verses of the Medina. For example, Quran says, for their taking usury, riba, there they were prohibited. So the Jews given to someone. And in this way, of the Quran in Surah Baqarah, that also Satan, or his tension will be as a person who has been touched by Satan. And he will, and it has been said in Ahadith that on the day of judgment, that person will be beaten by the Satan again and again, and then he will try to rise, but he will not be able to rise, and he will have to face a lot of punishment for taking riba. So it shows that Quran has prohibited believers to take riba in the Surah Baqarah, and then there are many other verses of the Quran. In the same way, and if any man should be in difficulties, let him have respite till things are easier. But that you should give a free will offering is better for you. So rather than taking, they should give people money, and if they are not able to return that back as a loan, they should give them some concession. It is better if they do take any riba on that, even if they may just give that money to them and not ask them to return. That is the Islamic spirit. But to insist that they have to return the money with additional amount, that has been not appreciated by Quran. So these are some of the very important verses of the Quran where mention of riba has been made. And there are so many ahadith of the Prophet where mention of riba has been made. So I will be sending you material on that, but just you we need to understand what is the concept of riba in Quran, in Sunnah, and what was the concept of riba in Arab, and what is the concept of riba in modern times, what how people have defined it. Among the Islamic bodies that have declared all interest to be riba, including the first International Conference of Islamic Economics, as I mentioned, the Fiqh Academy of the Organization of the Islamic Cooperation, 1986, the Research Council of Azhar University in 1965, and the Federal Sharia Court of Pakistan in 1991 judgment. Scholars and authors who have declared that there is a religious consensus ijma on the subject include Abdullah Maududi, a very important scholar of India, Pakistan, and then Yusuf Karzawi, and then Wahab al-Zuhairi, and Tariq Talib al-Lari, and then there are people like Mohammad al-Jani, and many others. They have talked that there is consensus that riba means interest, bank interests, and other interests which are being prevalent nowadays. Now, what was the earlier definition of riba? Let me tell you about Imam Abu Bakr Jassas. He was in 305, 378. So what he says about riba? Riba of Jahiliya is a loan given for stipulated period with a stipulated increase on the principal payable by the loanee. Who says this? Abu Bakr Jassas, one of the very important Hanafi, one of the very Hanafi jurists of Hanafi school, whose name is Abu Bakr Jassas. He says the riba al jahiliya is a loan given for stipulated period with a stipulated increase on the principal payable by the loanee. And he says again, the riba which was known to and practiced by the Arabs was that they used to advance loan in the form of dirham, silver coin, or dinar, gold coin. Now there is difference between dinar and dirham. Dirham is the silver coin, and dirham is the silver coin, and dinar is the gold coin. For a certain term, with an agreed increase on the amount of the principal advance. So you have given a dirham to someone, then you will ask them that we have returned this dirham back to me with some additional amount, maybe in the silver coin, or you may have given someone dinar, that is gold coin. You may ask him that you have returned it back after 1 year with some additional amount. That was considered to be riba in the times of Jahiliyyah, with some additional amount. That was very important. And Fakhruddin Razi, very important scholar of Islamic world, who has said in 1149 to 1209 what he has said about riba. Let us see the classical interpretation of riba. So the riba al-nasi it was a transaction well known and recognized in the days of Jahiliyyah. So the riba al-nasiya, it was very much known those days. It was prevalent in the Arabia before Islam, and it was well known. It was recognized by those days. They used to give money with a condition. So what is riba al-nasiya? You are giving money with a condition that they will charge a particular amount monthly, and the principal will remain due as it is monthly, not yearly. Then on the maturity, that they demanded the debtor to pay the principal. They have taken something more on the monthly basis, but at the end, when the term had come to pay back, so they had not to give more with this additional amount, but they had given that in monthly basis. So that was considered to be as riba nasiya. If he could not pay, they would increase the term and the payable amount. So it was the riba practiced by the people of Jahiliyyah. So this was also prevalent during the time of Jahiliyyah, says Imam Razi, Fakhruddin Razi. And then there are, he says, now Jassa says, another point he talks about, what was the definition of this riba? The riba of Jahiliyyah is a loan given for stipulated period, as I mentioned about that. Now, there are some other scholars. For example, we have Imam Qurtubi, very important scholar, who belongs to the school of Maliki school of thought. We had a Hanfi scholar, and now we have a Maliki scholar. Muslims are agreeing on the authority of their prophet that the condition for an increase over the amount lent is riba. So how he defines riba? That Muslims believe in this, that as Prophet has mentioned, that a condition for an increase, if you have already given a condition when you are giving, that was considered to be riba. So we are just trying to grapple with the definition of riba. People have said much about that, but as the students 1999, even the Supreme Court has delivered a judgment about that. In the presence of such an overwhelming consensus, there is no room for arguing that interest is not prohibited in Islam. Now, where we have reached it? Although there have been some scholars who have been saying that it is permissible to take interest on the loans, but we have nowadays consensus, and so many international conferences have taken place at Jeddah, at Makkah, at Pakistan, at Paris, and at other places of the world, and even the Supreme Court of the Pakistan and other Muslim countries, the great Cairo and other places. There have been organizations of Islamic world who have declared it that this riba means interest. Which interest? Which is being given to the people by the banks. The loans which are being taken by people from the banks, and then the interest is given to them. Whether this interest will be called riba or not, now there is consensus of the Muslim world that this is also riba. This is the discrete point. You understood what I say? You may have some, if you have some question, you can ask this time, but although you may have question later on whenever you like, but if you have any question, you have some, confusion still about the definition of riba or the interest, because this is an interesting subject, but it needs lot of deliberations, and whole Islamic world, scholars, jurists, intellectuals, and ulama, and the organizations of Islamic world, they have been joining their hands, meeting, talking, discussing, having deliberations on the subject, what is riba. Can this loan which is being given by the banks and the excess amount, additional amount on the money we are getting, which is known as interest, bank interest, whether that can be considered also as riba? How much discussion has taken place on this, starting from Jassas and Razi and Qurtubi, and then many scholars of the other fuqaha, they have talked about this. So this is a very interesting subject in this way, and there is the consensus on this subject in this way, that the poor people should be given money, but excess amount should be not taken from them. Islam does not believe in taking interest. Islam believes that we should help people, we should support people, we should give qarz hasna rather than money for getting interest on that. So this is the point which has been mentioned by many scholars of Islamic world, and even some scholars from non-Muslim world also have talked about that. And riba is a predetermined, fixed, and time-related excess over and above the principle of loan. Now we have reached to this definition. What is riba? Riba is a predetermined, fixed, and time-related excess over and above the principle of loan. So the amount you have given as loan to someone, and if you have discussed that this loan is to be taken back at a particular time, you have determined that and you have fixed that. You have fixed the time and you have fixed also the excess amount. If I have given you 1,000 rupees, for example, if I have given you $1,000, and I have just talked to you that you have to return it back after 1 year with $100 more, and $1,100. I have fixed the time, and I have also fixed the excess amount of $100. That is riba. Understand? So in the same way, riba is a discrepancy which results from the contractual obligation of the party in the context of a direct exchange of items. So this is also one of the definitions. Riba technically refers to the premium that must be paid by the borrower to the lender, along with the principal amount as a condition for the loan or for an extension in the maturity. So these are loan. This has been mentioned by Umar Chopra, very important scholar of in Umar Chopra. So he has talked about that. So riba, the pervasive role of interest in the economic hadith, and we have talked about the definitions which have been given to this subject by the scholars, starting from people like Jassas, Abu Bakr Razi, Maulana Maududi, Taqi Usmani, and other such scholars, and even Najatullah Siddiqui, what they have said about this subject. And then we have just tried to see what is riba al-fazl and what is riba al-jahiliya, what is riba al-nasi, what is riba al-sunnah, what is riba al-Quran. Almost all the subjects pertaining to this subject we have discussed. And then we have also said that there have been so many conferences of the Islamic world where the jurists were there, where the scholars were there, intellectuals were there, economists were there, and they have decided that the loan which is being given by the banks and the interest which is being taken on that is riba. And earlier Muhammad Abdu and others, they had said it is not riba, but now there is almost consensus worldwide that this is riba which is given on the loan taken by people from their banks or in the individual level or collective level, that is considered to be interest, and riba means interest in that sense. And there is consensus on that subject now. So now if you have some questions about the subject, then we can just go ahead.
Yeah, please, guys. Is there any question to the professor? Noha, Dia, Rian, you can try your language.
You
When you are
can use, yeah, no
speaking.
problem. Then you can translate.
Okay, I can translate it
Yeah.
for you. Is there any question, guys?
Yeah.
Noah, Dia.
I used to encourage students to ask questions whenever I am in Indonesia. So when I am there, I make people to ask questions, and I encourage them to ask questions. And Alhamdulillah, I used to have so many questions whenever I gave lecture in Indonesia, and people were encouraged and they were asking questions. So you should also not feel shy. And when I was in this, yeah, please.
Is there any
There is
question?
language is the problem, but you will learn by making mistakes. I say the only grammar for learning new languages to make mistakes.
Right.
If you do make mistakes, you will never learn a different language. And I encourage people that you should learn many languages, at least English and Arabic is very important. Okay. Now, if you have
Okay,
questions, you can ask.
come on, guys. Is there any question? Don't be afraid and don't be shy. Okay. Some people they are shy from to
Don't
asking
be shy. Don't be
questions.
shy because you are my students, just like my children. You are just like my daughters and my son. So you can, as you ask questions to your father, so you can ask your teacher also, no problem. So you don't feel shy and ask, and I will encourage you, inshallah, and your English will be improved. And
Right.
this is the time when you can ask questions and learn how to speak, how to talk, and you may be knowing what you want to say, but maybe it is difficult to express in language. But when you express, I understand. Now you can ask.
Maybe I'll try for opening the
You
question.
try.
Okay. According to the insurance, is there any Sharia insurance that practically that really using a Sharia system in this way?
Yeah. There is a much effort is being done for this interest free banking and takaful tawini. We have discussed that earlier also, but
Yes.
there
Right. But
is takaful tawini, but it has been not that much successful so far. Although there are efforts, we need to make more and more efforts because now there is a consensus on the subject that the interest given by the banks, that is riba, and riba has been made unlawful by Quran and by Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu. And the sin of riba is such a heinous sin. It has been considered as incest, like Nozbillah to just to go for the fornication, and that too with the mother of one's mother. And it is very severe, about 70 times severe than other sins. So it means that this is such a heinous crime that Muslims should avoid this and they should start new alternative banking for this. But we are not that much doing that much work on this. We should do more and more work so that we may have Sharia compliant banking, Sharia compliant business. But the business nowadays going on in the Muslim world and elsewhere is not Sharia compliant. But there are some efforts. We should appreciate that. But we need to give more and more emphasis and impetus on this. So that is needed. So there may be some companies like that. So, but we don't have the systematic way of that. We need to do much, and this is the duty of the students of Islamic economics, like you, like me, that we have to give a blueprint for that, and inshallah we can give. And now you know that in Israel there is interest-free banking. In London there are so many interest-free banking, and they are doing well. Even in non-Muslim countries, they are using this interest-free banking. And even in India, there was some suggestion that they will open one window for this. In Malaysia, there is. In Indonesia, there are. So we need to make more and more efforts. But we need first clarification about that. That is needed for the lectures, for the academic discussions. So I think that we should do this, but it is not much is not done on the account.
Yeah. Okay, Prof. Thank you. But according to you about the Islamic banking or Sharia bank in this world, is there any banking that really they are uh, try to practically using uh, a Sharia system? I mean, because all of the bank or most of the Islamic banking, they're still looking for the benefits, and they are not really uh, doing the Sharia system. Just
You're right. You're
try
right.
to try to
Yeah,
change the name from the conventional become the Sharia.
yeah. Yeah. There's a problem that basically the conceptual clarity is not there. I was laying much emphasis on the subject that we need to make it clear what is riba. Some people say that riba is not the interest which is being given by the banks, and that is very problematic. Even people like Muhammad Abdu, who has allowed in 1900 that we can take riba, that riba is not interest is not riba. And then from him till date, there have been people they were saying it is permissible, others say it is not permissible. So there is confusion. Now, we need to make it clear, as has been made clear by so many international organizations, Mu'tamar al-Islami, Fiqh Islami, and international conventions, Paris Convention, and then Makkah Conference, King Abdulaziz University program. So they have tried to make it clear that interest means riba, and riba is prohibited. So we should not have any confusion about that. But people are taking advantage of this confusion, and then they are doing same business as is being done by the banks which are dealing with interest. Muslim banks also do that. So we have to make it clear to them that what you are doing, this is not ta'awuni. This is business. This is not ta'awun. This is not taqafuli ta'awuni. This is not dealing with ta'awun al birri wa taqwa. So they are making business out of it. Islamic spirit is that you have to help people, and you have to give karza hasna without any greed for getting more and more benefits from them, as we do nowadays. So it is not in that sense totally Islamic. We can't call it totally Islamic, but this is a step towards the Islamic banking. So we should not denounce it. Also, it is better than interest banking still, but we need to refine it, modify it, make it more compatible to Islamic injections. And it should not be business oriented only, commercial oriented. It should have that Islamic spirit also in that. So for that reason, we need to have Islamic consortium type of thing. Muslim countries have to get together and work on the subject, so that they are trying to make such banking possible, which is purely Islamic in spirit also. And it should be not left to the individuals. There should be a collective effort on the part of Muslim community. They should work for this, not individually, not only one country or second country or third country, but all the Muslim countries, as they have Rabt al-Islami, they have to think about a universal international system of Islamic banking, not only left to the countries or the individuals, because people are making wealth out of it, they are making profit out of it, but they use the tag of Islamic banking. But that is not Islamic. They have their own interests. So we have to be very much clear, and that's only possible when scholars, when the students, when the teachers of Islamic economics, they are able to convince Islamic world that this is haram, this is prohibited, the way people are doing, taking interest from the banks, and it is heinous crime which has been, and it has been considered as war against Allah. بِحَرَبٍ min Allah. And it is a haram with Allah. So no other sin has been considered as war with God than usury or the interest. So when you are making people clear about this, definitely Muslim countries will join their hands. Then there will be international initiative for Islamic banking, not left to the countries, not left to the individuals, because people are just exploiting Islamic bank on the name of Islamic banking. They are exploiting people. So this is my reply to your question. There may be some more observations or questions. So
Okay,
if
thank
you
you
have
very
some,
much, Prof. Is there any more question?
you may write. Even you may write, if you can write also on chat box, no problem. There is something there. On chat box there is something. I am Daya. Could I get the material from the chapter? Thank you. I will send you material, no problem. And then there is yes, Daya. Yes, you have said it. That, guys, you can ask that too. If you still confused, you can write by. You can write. If there is any question, you can write here also on this chat box also. In
Okay.
Arabic also you can write question, no problem. I can understand. So I would like to make you to ask questions one day. I will make you to speak. I will make you to speak. This has been my way everywhere, wherever I go. I make students and my colleagues to talk, to discuss, to ask questions. This shyness should go. If you want to learn, husn sawal nisful ilm. The best question is half of the knowledge. And shyness is the worst enemy of knowledge. I was so shy when I was in college, but then I started talking, discussing, asking questions. Now I can ask a question anywhere in the world. So you can also. But you feel, no, if I ask a question, what people will say? People will say nothing. They will say he is or she is very good. They have asked a very good question. And be the first person to ask a question. This has been my advice to my students. I ask them that my students are now asking so many questions to me. Now, what I will do some next time, I will also bring my students in this class online, and they will ask questions. You will encourage and you will also ask questions. Okay? If you have still any question, you can ask.
Okay, you
Nice.
heard directly from the professor. Don't be shy, don't be afraid
Yeah.
about your mistake when you are asking some question.
And I say only language to learn a new language, only grammar to learn a new language is to make mistakes. If you do take
Right.
mistakes, you will never learn swimming, you will never learn language. Learn. And that's very important. You may just add something, you may ask a question, you may make comment, you may say it is good, it is bad, whatever you may say. So that at least you can do this. And starting from that, just you may say, sir, okay, but tell me this. And write down that question and speak in your own words. You have written down and you speak that, translate that. And in chit, you can also write and then ask. I will encourage you, inshallah. And there's no problem. There should be no communication problem between the teacher and the taught, student and the teacher. This is the best way. And I always encourage students to talk, to discuss, to ask questions, and never feel shy. And I hope that,
Ingracia,
yeah.
Ingracia, you can try again. You
Kak,
can try again. Okay, dia,
izin
please.
menggunakan bahasa Indonesia ya, Kak.
It is better when you try to speak English. Then I will translate it to you, and maybe I try to correct it your language maybe. But
Ya,
you have try your language. Okay.
apa, aku mau nanya, kalau kerja di bank konvensional itu masuknya apakah riba? Soalnya sekalipun kita punya niat untuk menafkahi keluarga, itu tetap haram kah, Pak? Kayak gitu.
Okay, Prof.
Yeah.
She's asking about when you are working at the Sharia banking. As we know that a Sharia or Islamic banking is still doing a riba transaction. But when is someone working at the Islamic banking? Is that allowed in Islam? Because also they give some nafkah to their family. Okay.
There are some, people have said that, if there is no way out, then you are suffering because of the poverty, and then you have no other way of, income. In those tiring circumstances, some people have allowed to work in the banks where there is no Sharia banking, but it has been not encouraged. They have said that it's better not to work in such. Just giving a hope to a person who has not paid whole money and he has got insured. So this will be also gharar in that sense. So in this way, all type of insurance, which is non-Sharia, that will be also prohibited. And because there is the involvement of interest in that, because of interest, it is becoming haram. But if there is no problem of interest, then it will not become haram. So you are giving money to someone, and that as for business or other things, without any condition that you have to return it with this money, and or you get that much of loan on the interest in on this. So because of involvement of the interest in such type of business, it will become riba, and it is not allowed in that sense. only that insurance is allowed, which is based on ta'awun. Then people may have musharaka, they may have muzaraba, they may have joint adventure, Sharia compliant backing, business they will start. So that is allowed, but not which is not based on Sharia compliance. So that will be haram in that sense. Hope I have just replied to your question. Oh, if there may be some more, good. I am happy that you at least there have several questions have come, and you may write there or you may ask as you like. So that I want to ask about insurance. Okay, so that I have replied. If there are some more questions, you can ask.
Okay, is there any more questions, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, Noha, please try.
Yeah, you're right, please.
What if there are two people who exchange types of food, but with the agreement in the beginning that it's riba?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you repeat again? You good?
What if there are two people exchange type of good, but in the beginning there are the agreement.
Okay.
Nasha. So can you explain, Dr. Zaini? Can you explain?
Okay, can you translate it to Indonesia because I also don't understand about.
Kalau misalnya ada dua orang melakukan pertukaran barang, something, terus tapi di awalnya udah ada perjanjian gitu loh Pak, nggak apa-apa kalau harganya beda.
Okay, she is asking about doing a barter between good thing and the, for example, between the what we call it, like rice, good rice with a poor rice, for example. So this is a lot in Islam.
No, this isn't. Yeah, you are right. So basically, I have mentioned that basically it is not allowed because that will come in this, riba al-fazl.
If they are sell this rice, they have a some price.
Okay.
Okay, 5 kilogram of poor rice around 20,000 rupiah.
Okay.
And 2 kilogram good
some
rice.
Situations that, yeah.
Okay.
There may be some exceptions. But no, apparently it seems, ostensibly it seems, but no, there may be some conditions like that because people are in distress and they need some money, but at least there is no interest is not there. At least there is no interest in that because they are not taking much from the actual price. They are getting only that much, which is the cost of the item or the thing. So in this way, commodity. So there can be exception for this.
So this is allowed in Islam.
This is by, if there is no gharar involved and there is no interest involved, then it can be thought that it can be allowed, no problem, because barter system is there, and this is also possible that because of their time, you had given, I had taken 1 kg rice from you 1 year before. Now I am returning it 1 year after, and I am getting the same price for that. So in this way, there is no loss to both of the parties. At least there is no loss, and there is no gharar in this way also, in the sense because the amount is same. So that can be thought, but this is exception. Otherwise, if there is gharar and there is interest, that will become unlawful in this way. Gharar and interest makes anything unlawful, not other conditions.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Is there any question, guys? Tarik, Fadia?
Saya mau nanya, Pak.
Okay, please.
Cuman ke Indonesia.
Try by English.
Yeah.
English. You can try.
Speak English.
Okay, speak English. Don't worry, don't be
agak ribet
afraid.
pertanyaannya, Pak, kalau saya pakai Inggris.
Okay.
What he says?
He's still confused when he is asking by English.
You speak, no problem. You speak and speak, that's the problem. Then you learn. If you don't speak, then you'll never learn.
Oke, coba bahasa.
Kasian Prof nggak paham, Pak. Saya bahasa Inggris.
Nanti Bapak pahamkan.
Jadi itu kan waktu kita belajar makosid syariah kemarin, kalau saya nggak salah dengar, apa namanya? Lupa. Bentar, Pak. Jadi ini sebenarnya agak lari dari konteks riba sih, Pak. Tapi masih masalah riba. Jadi itu bisa berubah hukum riba ini menjadi kita boleh misalnya kita nabung di bank konvensional, kita boleh nabung kan di bank konvensional kita tahu itu riba, Pak. Nah, kita boleh nabung dalam niat kita untuk menjaga harta kita.
Sorry, I cannot hear your voice, Mari.
Halo.
Oke.
Coba.
Tadi putus-putus.
Oh gitu.
Oke, try again.
Jadi di Makosid Syariah kemarin, kalau saya nggak salah dengar kan Pak Zaini jelasin kalau misalnya kita boleh nabung di bank konvensional kalau misalnya niat kita untuk menjaga harta kita.
Okay.
Nah, jadi berarti kan di sini di usul fiqh di Makosid Syariah kemarin dia membolehkan kita untuk nabung di bank yang ada ribanya gitu kan Pak. Nah, jadi apa emang hukum Islam di usul fiqh itu sefleksibel itu gitu Pak. Jadi kita bisa jadi itu bisa merubah yang awalnya haram jadi halal gitu. Dan kalau misalnya iya, apa itu harus ditentuin oleh ulama atau kita sendiri bisa gitu.
Okay, this is a little bit confused to translate it. Okay, Prof. I will try to translate it to you. Okay. Last week ago, I just tried to giving some lecture to the student about the Maqasid Sharia. I said that when we are when we are put our money in the bank, it is allowed in Islam because we are keep our treasure. According to Maqasid Sharia, it is allowed in Islam, right? But on the other hand, banks is like the best scam of the riba. All of the transaction in conventional banks is contain riba, right? So gimana maksudnya tadi, Barik?
Jadi apa emang hukum Islam itu sefleksibel itu loh, Pak? Jadi bisa berubah dari haram ke halal.
Okay.
Basically, I could understand, as I understood your question, is that there is a bank which is doing in conventional banking where riba is very important. Without riba, no bank is working. There is interest. So if we put our money in that bank, amount in that bank, whether keeping money in that bank is allowed in Sharia in Islam, this is your question basically. If we see from Islamic point of view, so that will be sometimes under very, very difficult conditions you are keeping money there. Otherwise, if you could avoid that, that would run better. Because you need an alternative banking where you could put your money, which is not dealing with the bank, which is not dealing with riba. As there's a hadith of the Prophet, one day there will be no house, no person who will be not touched by the interest, or it is dust, or it's vapors. So in modern times, we have such type of banks where there is no transaction without interest. So we should not also become part of that, because it has been said, a person who is writing for interest, a person who is giving interest, a person who is taking interest. So they all have by Sharia. So we should not become among those condemnable people, so that we will. But nowadays we are compelled because of the circumstances. We don't have any other alternative banking. By compulsion we are doing that. We see from Islamic point of view, it is not advisable to keep money there. But we have to work for the interest-free banking, not conventional banking, because conventional banking is dealing with interest, and there is no way out than interest in conventional banking, and you also get affected by that.
Kayaknya ada trouble beliau ya. Sepertinya ada trouble beliau. Ya, betul kan? Keluar kan beliau ya?
Iya, Pak.
Baik. Oke, no problem. Jadi kalau tadi dikatakan, Barik, apakah sefleksibel itu hukum Islam itu berubah? Sambil menunggu beliau join ya. Sebenarnya hukum Islam itu kan selalu mengikuti perkembangan zaman dan mengikuti keadaan. Ya, kalau di dalam sebuah kaidah usul fikih itu dikatakan al-hukmu yaduru ma'illatihi. Hukum Islam itu selalu berputar sesuai dengan ilatnya. Ilat itu sesuai dengan sebabnya. Tujuannya apa? Kalau ketika kita tujuannya, oke, he has joined. Kalau tujuannya tadi menabung di bank konvensional itu adalah apa namanya menyelamatkan harta kita, berarti kan di situ diperbolehkan, betul nggak? Meskipun di situ apa sarangnya riba di bank konvensional, tapi kan tujuan kita untuk apa? Menyelamatkan harta supaya harta kita itu apa tidak diambil orang lain, tidak dirampok, tidak dicuri, maka no problem. Itu tujuan yang pertama. Ketika tujuannya adalah itu, maka diperbolehkan. Oke. Tapi ketika kemudian setelah kita menabung, kemudian kita mengambil.
So you are listening? Am I audible?
Halo, Prof.
Am I audible?
Okay.
Do you listen me?
We cannot hear your voice clearly.
Yeah, there was a problem of internet problem was there. But no, my point was that we pay for transactional banking, and there is no dealing with interest.
So sorry.
But when there is no way out for the time, but
so sorry, Prof. We can hear your voice. I think your signal is not really good. Hello, Prof. Okay, waiting for the professor. I just want to continue what the explanation before, okay? Jadi kembali lagi, jadi boleh tadi menabung di bank ketika apa tujuan kita adalah menyelamatkan harta kita. Ketika ditanya apakah sefleksibel itu hukum Islam itu berubah? Iya, karena tadi yang namanya hukum Islam itu akan selalu mengikuti penyebab daripada apa yang dilakukan, penyebab daripada perbuatan tersebut. Ketika dia ingin menyelamatkan harta, maka diperbolehkan, ya kan? Seperti hanya ketika seseorang memakan babi, kan? Memakan babi itu kan nggak boleh, tapi ketika dalam keadaan darurat menjadi boleh. Itu fleksibel. Karena dalam konteks hukum Islam, dalam konteks muamalah khususnya, itu tujuan utamanya adalah memudahkan masyarakat itu sendiri. Itu ya, Tarik. Tujuan utamanya adalah memudahkan.
There was some problem. I'm sorry.
Okay. Finally, you join us.
I could connect. Yeah. So I think that no.
Okay, finally you have joined us again.
Listen what I said. What
Yes.
I said, you listened, I think so. I said that basically we need a banking where there is no interest dealing at all. If we want to be totally compliant with Sharia. But if there is no way out and there's only conventional banking, and you want to safeguard your money, you can't keep that with you in your own house. There is danger. There may be robbers. There may be dacoits. They may snatch this money. Now, by compulsion, you are doing that in the conventional banking. But you should not remain in this condition for all times to come. You have to work for Islamic banking, where you can keep your money without interest feelings and all this. Because interest is such a heinous crime, which has been prohibited by Islam. And if we keep on doing this, there's war against us from God. And people say that all the misfortunes and miseries nowadays befalling on world is because of interest. This has been condemned by Allah. This has been considered as the war against Allah to deal with the interest banking. So why to keep in this yourself always in this condition? Why not to try to do other banking, which is Sharia compliant? We have to work for that. We should not be satisfied with this conventional type of banking. We need a alternate banking, that is Sharia compliant banking. But till then, by compulsion, a lot of disturbance, you may be keeping your money there, but better not to keep there, but try for the Islamic banking and Sharia compliant banking. So that is my feeling, and I feel that we should do something for that. When Jews could make interest banking prevalent worldwide, why not we can work for Sharia compliant banking? And that is good. Even in Israel, there is one bank which is interest free nowadays. In England, there is. Why not in Malaysia? Why not in India? Why not Malaysia? And people are trying. Let us guide them. And you are the people. We are the people who are the scholars or the students of Islamic economics, we can give them the details and blueprint. They may be not knowing all the nitty-gritties, but we know. Let us tell them. And there are good scholars of Islamic economics. They can come to forward and they can encourage governments to start, Sharia compliant banking, so that we may not have to deposit our money in banks which are dealing with interest. And interest has been denounced by Islam. That is my point.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. So what I can conclude, Barik, we are allowed to put our amount or our money to the Islamic or conventional bank as long as we are not taking the interest from that bank. Yeah.
That can be that is one. There are some scholars, they say by compulsion you may keep money there. But if you get the interest there, you should give that to poor people. Some people have said, as there are some money, Professor this Manik, he says this, that we should take that money out, which is interest to money, that should be given to poor, but not with the hope of reward. We should give that to Muslim poor people. So that can be done. There's no doubt, but we should try also for alternate banking. That's very important. But for the time being, till we are able to start our own Islamic banking, till then we can keep our money there, but without taking in current accounts, not in the saving accounts. We can do this, and whatever the interest accrues there, that should be given to the poor people, and there should be no hope of reward for that. Not no hope of reward for that. So the money which is coming as the interest, that should be distributed among the poor people, fukra or Muslims, but without any hope or reward, without any expectation from reward from God, because a wrong thing can't give you any reward. Even if you are safeguarded from it, is ill effect, that is sufficient. But there is an effect of that money, definitely. In our society, a lot of problems have created because of this interest. Let me tell you. And there it has been considered as heinous crime, and it is affecting our economy, our health, our conditions of our countries. And a lot of problems are created by this problem. But till then, we are not able to establish Islamic banking. We can keep that money, but without taking interest for ourselves. We can take that out for the poor people, but having no hope or reward or sawab for that, and praying to Allah that He should safeguard us from the ill effects of any interest which is coming to the community or the community. So this is one of the responses to this question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Hamidullah. I think our time is running out.
Okay, it was nice, mashallah.
Very interesting topic for today, Professor Hamidullah. Thank you very much for the lecturer. Hopefully, this can open the mind of our student, especially the IPM student today. Okay, thank you very much, and all of the students. Hopefully, we can continue our discussion in the other opportunity, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you very much.
Okay.
It was nice
Thank you
talking
very
to
much,
you,
Professor.
and I am happy that many students have asked questions today. I am happy. I am successful, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
If I make it also questions, I am successful. Huh? Take care. All the best.
Okay. So thank you very much, Professor, and all of the students. I just want some additional information that inshallah by the next week, all of you have some the first examination, right? Just please prepare yourself and do the examination well. Okay. Don't do and don't try to copy paste from the Google, but try to answer by yourself. Okay.
All the best for examinations.
Okay, let's close our meeting today dengan syafiq hamdalah and doa kafaratul majlis. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Thank you very much, Prof. Have a nice day for today, Professor. Hopefully we can meet soon, inshallah. Oke, silakan teman-teman yang mau